Welcome to Fuelin, Chief Performance Officer.
What a title. What's that? CPO. There we go. I love it.
You are now the CPO of Fuelin. So.
CPO of Fuelin.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's been a long time coming.
Mate, it has, and I guess, I don't know, there's a bit of a backstory that hasn't ever really been told, because I guess it wasn't really appropriate at the time to talk about it, but now I guess we can, because you're now part of the team. Do you want to just sort of tell us that story?
Yeah, it was the last year of my career when I really realized that the game of nutrition is changing the game of triathlon. Like it's, I've come a long way from people having a small 500 milliliter bottle for a 6-hour ride. And if that bottle was empty by the end of the ride, you would be considered weak. That was my beginnings of nutrition. Early 2000s, it was all about hardcore dieting, and just then in the off season putting on 6, 7, 8 kilos. And I realized that the young guard isn't just getting better because they're training different. It's because they've got more calories. And I heard one of your podcasts, and I reached out, and it took quite a while till you replied. What was that? What was up with that?
Well, to be honest, I was telling the team about this. I thought I was getting catfished. So I had this little message in Instagram, and it was like, yeah, I'm Frodeno. And I was like, oh, well, it's probably just a fake account. And then I think I messaged you back, and then you were like, yeah, I actually want to chat to you. And I was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, let's have a call and let's catch up. And then I guess, as you say, the rest is history. To be honest, I was pretty flattered the fact that you reached out. And I remember you saying as well, you're like, mate, I've spoken to a lot of nutrition experts. They all have German accents, and they all sound like they're stuck in the 80s. I think we need to have a chat. And I was like, okay, well, I definitely don't do two of those things. So,
well, the thing is, nutrition is a very specific topic, and it's very close to my heart, as you know. Like, I eat very specific foods. I look at the quality of the foods. For me, it's more than just counting calories and counting nutrients. But that being said, sometimes nutrients and calories and things like that need to be counted for performance. And that was something that I definitely learned from you, that I was never really wanting to do because I saw it as such a restriction. I come from a time for the Olympics in 2008, I was 2.9% body fat.
Yeah.
I was a whooping 7.5 kilos lighter than I am now. And obviously that's a lot of muscle, but still, there's just an energy deficit all the time. And it was staggering to me. I mean, I remember you laying out the numbers, 15 cups of rice in my case, the day before a race. Like, it's outrageous how much that is, but then even continuing that throughout the races, and having an open, approachable manner. I think that was what really lured me in, what got me hooked, because, it's not you have to, but it's like, if you want to perform, this is the science, the rest is up to you. But laying it out and explaining it was a big key for me.
It was good. I remember, every week you had your call, you booked it in, and we're at different time zones. I'm in Sydney, you're in Europe, and so, one of us was bleary-eyed. You usually had a coffee in hand. I think it was usually early morning for you. But I loved the fact that you would just, I was talking to you, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is the GO.A.T. Regarded as the GO.A.T, fair play. But you were so interested in what was new and what can you do to be better, because you recognize, like you were saying, I'm older, there's younger guys, they're doing things that I've never done before. What do I need to do differently in order to change the game?
Well, Scott, I've had to reinvent myself for 23 years as a pro, and sometimes that's a mental thing because you have to find new motivation. But if you're standing still, you're actually going backwards, because, I used the pandemic in a lot of sense to draft out a lot of ideas and start a few new projects. But the next generation, they figured out things in that time where they just dug themselves into a place of solitude and just, re-rigged the game.
Yeah.
And that's where I needed help. I realized I was at a deficit, literally, energetic and caloric deficit. And, the idea of not wanting to binge eat after an Ironman, it's just completely foreign, because you're just fueled all the time. Even the marathon, the second half, which is actually why I believe that times are getting so much faster too. It's just that people still have gas in the tank.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, I remember my first Ironman, on the marathon, I took 2 gels. 2 gels, that would be 40...
Let's say 50 grams best.
Yeah.
50 grams best.
50 grams of carbs, you know?
Yeah.
Over 2 hours, and it was 240, 245, something like that. You know, whereas now, if you do the math on this, that's 1/6.
Yeah.
You should be about 300 grams. And all those things, like making it approachable, because, you know, numbers and the terminologies and macros and micros and this and that, you know, it's daunting at first. And even though it was always an interest of mine, like I live to eat, and therefore I didn't want to make it a science, but actually making the science fun because it helps you perform. That was the door you opened for me.
Do you remember, talking of food, rice cakes? I remember you sitting, I think you were in Andorra at the time. You had you'd ridden down, maybe to Nice or something like that, and you're sitting on the balcony and you're eating food. And you were like, don't worry, mate, I've got my rice cakes. And I'm like, mate, rice cakes have 7 grams of carbs. And you're like, no, they don't. They've got 24. You're like, I'm going to check right now. Shit. I've been eating 7 grams of carbs for like, I don't know how long.
Yeah, but it's a difficult balance. You know, what works for you over the years, especially with running, like running, pre-running, sensitive stomachs, you know, that kind of stuff. You got to kind of find a balance, and you got to play with it. You know, you need energy, but it's not always easy to find.
Andrew, I still remember, like, I remember saying to you, were like, I cannot eat that before that session. I was like, mate, you got to. And you're like, okay, what can I eat? And I was like, okay, can you eat some sourdough? Can you eat some bread? And you were like, I can probably eat some bread. And then you ate it. And then I remember we had the call and you're like, mate, I ate the sourdough. But it's so crazy because, like, I kept thinking to myself, this is the guy who's won like world championships, gold medals and that, and I'm talking to him about a piece of bread before a session. But I think that's really important. Like,
anybody can improve.
So everyone can improve, and it's like with food as well. Like, yes, it was carbohydrates. We talked about the total amount of carbs and stuff, but you were like, okay, piece of toast with some jam. I can do that. And it had, like, I remember that training block leading into the PTO. Like, I just remember talking to you and you were like, I feel good. I feel really good. And Emma actually is really surprised by I'm not grumpy. Like,
you don't go to that hangry stage anymore. I mean, I have to say the PTO in Milwaukee, I think that was when we kind of, like, you know, had our best run in and got things going. But we almost didn't make it, and I'll tell you why. Because there was my training buddy at the time was sitting next to me, and we had a call, and you were on speaker, and you're like, Jan, I don't think you can have any more coffee after 2 p.m. And I'm like, what? And Brad, who's my training partner, he looked at me and he was like, he just started shaking his head like, this is not good, this is not good. But, you know, you find your marriage between performance and recovery, and having the openness, I think, is something that it was just a pleasure learning from.
Oh, thanks, mate. You had, there was a lot of that back and forth though, which is all, that's the coaching though. I think that's forgotten so often, isn't it? It's like,
yeah, otherwise you can just read a book.
Yeah.
You can just read a book, and I mean, there's 1,000 books out there, and finding an individualized approach, that's what I really loved about Fuelin. You know, you can choose the amount of meals you want to do, different recipes, whether you want to change things up, you don't want to change things up. It's such an individual thing, you know. Nutrition is just very often, you know, the old days is pasta, carbo loading, you know. No, there's 28 other options out there that you can try. And in the end, all that matters is that you get the enough of nutrient-dense food to fuel you for the race. And it's amazing because race day is one thing, but just the recovery you feel from day to day, realizing that training is for performance, and if you do it well, you can back things up. And whether you're doing weight loss or not weight loss, which is what I'm more into now, trying to upkeep the vanity. No, it's fascinating, and it's pretty endless.
Obviously, PTO was a pretty good result. I remember because the time difference was terrible in Australia, and my phone was just going off the hook from mates who obviously I'd told them that I was working with you. Hush, hush. But they were like, mate, I think Jan's going to win this. And I was like, oh shit, I better get online and have a look. And you know, it was a great day to be involved. And you know, certainly a proud moment, I think, for myself and for Fuelin to be part of, you know, that final run in. For you, I mean, yeah, how did you sort of see Fuelin and what we did there, and then like, yeah, your perspective on what we were doing at the time?
Well, you know, I think Milwaukee for me was obviously a great result because, you know, a year before I was in hospital and I kind of had some pretty bad injuries, and I swore to myself that I'd get to the top like one more time, right? And the thing is, in my circle, I always look for rocks that I can depend on. And it was the time that I could really know that I've got the nutrition dialed. You know, we've been practicing things, we've done race day practices, we've done simulations, we've done the training, obviously, which was hugely important. But, you know, it was in the end a piece of the puzzle. You could say, yeah, it was just another piece of the puzzle, but I mean, in the end, there's not that many, right? There's not that many things that you look at that you have under your control. Because that's something I've always, not always, but that I learned later on in life. It's important to focus on the things that you can control. Everything else, whether you win or not, is not up to you. You try and put your best foot forward, but you can rely on everything that you do, and nutrition is a big part of that. And being able to rely, having had that master plan that we talked on in a rental car on the way to the race site, you know, chewing it all through, was cool. You know, it's just cool to get those things together. And, you know, by that stage, I was obviously aware that victories come and go, and that those moments are kind of special. But yeah, it really felt like a piece of the team and a great moment.
Obviously now you've retired. What's next?
Yeah, CPO, Chief Performance Officer for Fuelin. It's kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I mean, I am very passionate about performance. I'm passionate about nutrition as such, and I'm passionate about bringing it to the next generation and also to age groupers in general, because I think there is a huge value in that. I think much of what drives me is sharing what I wish I knew along the lines. You know, I started off, and you make a lot of mistakes, and I understand that mistakes are part of the journey, and probably also why I had a good longevity, because I made mistakes that just set me back and had natural breaks, right? But in the end, you know, being able to share that and making people's journeys more joyful, because let's be honest, you don't play Ironman. You don't play marathon, you don't play endurance sports. You know, it's what we call type 2 fun, and it's an incredibly rewarding journey because, you know, you're on your own path and you get there and you have to work your way to each finish line. But I think anything that we can add to anyone's journey, be it an amateur, be it a first timer, be it a professional, is extremely rewarding, you know, I think for both sides, because I get a lot of joy out of seeing people reach their goals, and that's what this is about. I think Fuelin to me is a tool to share knowledge, to find ways that work for individuals, and, you know, to enjoy what this beautiful endurance world has to offer.
If I said, how important do you think nutrition is now to an athlete, like an endurance athlete? Like, where would you put it in ranking now?
It's not now that it's always been important. It's just that we've underestimated, and people thought that you have to run on fumes for the last half of the marathon.
I remember you saying that exact thing to me. Like, you were like, mate, if I even water, you were like, if I reach my water bottle when I first started out, it was like, mate, don't you dare.
Yeah, and it's such a mental stigma. There's so much attached to toughness and what we perceive as being tough. Whereas in the end, the point is to get from A to B as fast and as good as possible. And
do it again.
And do it again. You do it in a race, but in order to get there in a race, you need to do it day in, day out. Yeah. And there is just so much out there. Yeah. There is so much false information out there too, so much hype, so much marketing. And I think bringing some kind of anecdotal truth and some science, the latest research, which is definitely your job. I mean, I learned from you in that sense. I've just been fortunate enough to try a lot of stuff over 20 plus years, and just help people along their journey if they wish to hear it.
Yeah. What can we expect from you with Fuelin. What are we going to be doing together, or what are you specifically bringing to the team?
Well, I definitely look like I have to chop the vegetables in the team. I mean, we've clarified that.
I feel like I got a rough go on that. Like, I had a bad knife, and I think...
Yeah, you did it much better with the other knife. Yeah, sorry, I forgot. Oh no, it didn't happen. So honestly, I think what I want to bring to the app is probably a more personal approach. I definitely see that, in terms of the interaction, in terms of recipes, having options, and just bringing in kind of the things that have worked for me over the past. I think it's something that I get asked about all the time. People ask me for recipes, people ask me for nutritional advice, and sharing, the knowledge that I've gathered and really sitting down with you, exchanging ideas and looking for the best way to navigate this jungle that nutrition has become. Just realizing there is science, but there's also human side to it. And we're all here just to have a good time in the end. Thanks for a first curry and chat. I'm looking forward to expanding the library of recipes and
I'm going to practice my
uh,
cutting skills before next time, either in Noosa or Andorra or somewhere like that.
Absolutely, but you'll never be called a chopper.